You tell us when we're ready, Stephen.
Yeah, we are live now.
Hi, okay. All right, so we'll call this meeting to order, the board meeting of the Metro Vancouver Transit Police Board. And as we call it to order, we would like to acknowledge that the Metro Vancouver Transit Police operate through the traditional territories of the Lower Mainland Coast Salish peoples, and we give thanks for their hospitality on these lands. I guess we move to item 1.1, and we'd like to welcome our guest, Mark Reeder, past board chair, and talk a little bit about the Emile Kolb Award, which he was awarded by the Canadian Association of Police Governance at their last meeting. The Emile Kolb Award for Excellence in Police Governance was established by the Canadian Association of Police Governance to recognize and highlight an individual for their significant contributions, commitment, and leadership towards the enhancement of civilian police governance in Canada. Our board nominated Mark last year for this, and I'm just going to let those of you who are new to the board and hadn't had a chance to work with Mark, let you know some of the reasons why he was nominated. Mark's pretty humble, but it was a long list. Mark was appointed to serve on our police board as chair in July of 2011, and he served as chair for 8.5 years until the end of December of 2019. He provided critical leadership in matters relating to police governance, and that amounted to more than half of the life of the police service. During his time on the board, many important governance matters were addressed, arising from the unique structure of the police service. As a designated policing agency across multiple jurisdictions with multiple governance structures, unique relationship to TransLink and the subsidiary, it was a unique degree of complexity in the governance structure. And I will say it requires a talent for collaboration, a strategic lens, a clear-eyed ability to maintain police independence, which is of course of critical importance when you are governing a police service, which has to always act in the public interest. Mark was fully committed, unwavering commitment to the task. He developed an excellent, efficient board that met all our legal and regulatory requirements, remained independent, collegial, and managed to navigate and help build a growing police agency during a period of unprecedented political and media attention on transit in the province and on the transit police in the province. He led hiring processes that delivered successive strong leadership. He encouraged and supported all the other directors to deliver their best efforts to grow and develop, to ensure that there was always space for wide-ranging, frank, open conversations that were comprehensive, respectful. Preparation was always excellent. He always demonstrated a standard of excellence. And I can say that, you know, one of the reasons I always wanted to show up and be prepared, because I knew that Mark was going to be prepared. And this was not a place where you could come and kind of wing it. There was no winging it in this room when we showed up at these meetings. We had incredibly substantive strategic discussions, including the establishment of TSML, the creation of the deployment model, the development of a 5-year strategic plan, working through strategies for growth model, planning for the Evergreen SkyTrain station, always thinking ahead, always looking at the environment, scanning the issues. He's a full-time leader at his job. He has runs his organization, and yet he's, in addition to making all the time that I've come to learn is quite a bit as the board chair, he made time to attend ceremonies and events for the police service, the all ranks dinner. He always recognized employees at all of these events for their exceptional contribution and performance. He always expressed his pride at being part of the organization and his appreciation for the hard work performed by employees. He ensured that there was outreach to the community, led a number of important meetings in the community, including the most recent one we had at Mosaic not that long before the shutdown, which led to a lot of meaningful presentations and important dialogue with different community groups and members, and was very important in educating the board, which is he always kept his eye on as well, making sure that we were aware of the communities that we serve. All in all, he covered the ground. He sort of demonstrated how important it is to be responsible and focused on all aspects of being a chair. I think about that a lot in this past year. What would Mark do? WWMD. And I know that he's really deserving of the Emile Kolb Award for Excellence because he's left a strong, stable, effective, and efficient board, which has enabled us to be in a really strong position to weather the last year and continue the best practices in collaborative structure that he spearheaded. And before I end, I want to also commend Mark, because that wasn't all he did for police in British Columbia. He spent 6 years prior to his 8.5 years on this board on the West Vancouver Police Board, which means that he spent a total of 14 years to police board governance in the province. And in all that time, he never slacked off, he never wavered, he always remained focused and intent on serving the public interest. So I think it's fair to say that this board and police governance in general is deeply indebted to Mark. I also know that he's attended training sessions for other board members, really made a huge contribution to policing in BC. And I know that we all agree that he represents the values and commitment that we all would aspire to. And I really want to congratulate you, Mark, and thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Hear, hear.
I wish we could have all attended that meeting where you were awarded that at the police board meeting, but I'm glad we had a chance to do that here.
Sarah, I don't know what to say. I see Oscar's got his hand up, but thank you. You know, I think that anything that where there's recognition only comes out of the place you come from, and where I came from, I thought was a strong, if not, I thought an exemplary board of exemplary in terms of all board governance, police governance in British Columbia. And so it is in collaboration that I think one individual can achieve some things and perhaps do some things that that contribute to nothing short of, I think, a better service. And I think that that's one of the things that every member of a board should ask themselves, you know, after a year or 2 years, is this going forward, and do we have a better service? And I think that's where a lot of the satisfaction comes out of it. So it's great to be recognized, absolutely. So somewhat humbling, I suppose, but it's really a credit to all the people, Sarah, yourself, and Pat, and Adam, and many others who I served on the board, Doug Lepard on the board, as well as Chief. I also want to say too that the board, the Transit Police Board, is also dynamic and successful because of what I think is a really, really strong working relationship between board and management. Dave and Barry and Oscar and Mike and Stephen and Taryn, those are vital chemistry that I think serves each other. And I think that's always been my experience over the years that I was there. So as I mentioned just maybe before, you contribute to this, I think, as a part of citizenship. I think it's a really important part of citizenship, civilian oversight and governance. So police, I think it's part of our democracy. I'm really proud to have been involved in it. And as I say, however much you give, you tend to get more back in terms of your own personal development and satisfaction. So thank you. I am surprised and somewhat humbled that someone would want to go through an award application process, but really thrilled to be recognized. And in that recognition, I hope that really its fundamental isn't so much about the individual, but says as much about myself as is about the organization, which is the Transit Police and the board that I came from. So thank you very much, everybody.
Well, thank you, Mark, and thanks for coming. Wish we could hang around and have a chat.
No,
We'll have to
I'm
do
sure.
that.
I hope you've got a full agenda and lots
We
of
do.
really important things to work through. So I won't take any more of your time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks,
Nice
everyone.
to see you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Mark.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye.
Okay. So shall we move on to item 1.2 on the consent agenda? And has everyone had a chance to read the materials? Does anyone want to pull anything out for discussion?
Murray?
Nope. Did it? No?
No,
Okay.
you wait for Murray to do that. So no, not this time. All right.
Okay.
I'll move
So
the agenda.
someone want to move the recommendation? Okay, I'm
Move it.
trying to scan my screen here. Murray, all right. Somebody seconded it. Thank you. That the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority Board of Directors approves or receives for information following items on the consent agenda, items A to K. Item number 2. Do we have any public delegations here today?
We did
Karen?
not receive any delegations.
Okay.
No.
To item 3.1. Any TPPA attending today?
No, not today.
Not today. Okay, thank you. Item 3.2, Chief Officer's Report.
So,
Hi,
good
Dave.
morning. Good morning. And really what this has been, a lot of it has been talking about the COVID response, which I can just tell you that we're pretty much in the same holding pattern. You know, we've addressed it well. We're still moving ahead with all of we have our precautions in place, and we've been surviving on a good point. And barring any questions from that, what I'd rather have today, and having heard a bit from the governance panel, as also wanting to hear from other members, I thought we'd switch up a bit in this area and get the ops deputies and some others on occasion to present to you what's happening in there, what are significant in their areas, opposed to me. So provided today, unless you have any specific, I'll let them go. And then if you have any specific questions, you can perhaps bring it back. So I'd ask perhaps Barry Cross to spend some time just updating from the admin side of the organization.
Great. Thanks, Chief. A couple of topics I just wanted to cover off this morning quickly: diversity, facilities, and training. There's lots more going on the admin side of the house here, but I just thought I'd give you a quick update on that. So we've got a year-end reports on hiring for the Transit Police from 2020, and I'm very, very proud of, I think, how we've moved the dial forward on diversity. So some quick stats for you. In 2020, we are currently residing right now at 20% women in the organization, and we are currently sitting at 32% in our visible diversity category. And that represents 12 different visible diversity categories throughout the organization, which is, I think, very, very well done by the recruiting team. Our hiring in 2020, we hired at a rate of 44% for women. So, we're trying to raise that bar from 20%. We'd like to see it move towards that, 23, 25% women in the organization. And hiring so far in 2020 at 44% is certainly going to move that dial in the right direction. And we hired at a rate of 55% in the visible diversity category. So in 2020, we hired 9 police officers altogether. All but one spoke an additional language, and there were 6 languages other than English spoken by those 9. And so far in 2021, we had a class that just started on January the 14th, 4 people. 3 of the 4 of those speak an additional language, and that was diverse as far as a breakdown between men and women and visible diversity as well. So very, very proud of where that's going. I think, we really speak all the time about wanting to represent our communities. And the fact that the Transit Police bridges across 17 different, policing jurisdictions throughout Metro Vancouver, goes without saying that there are many, many visible, diverse communities out there. And I think we're doing a very good job of addressing that with our hiring. The other piece that sort of goes hand in glove with the diversity component is on our facilities. So I think we've mentioned before that we're increasing the number of women in the organization. That's grown exponentially over the last number of years. And certainly the physical constraints of the buildings that we operate out of have different requirements now than they did when we first moved in. So we're in the midst now, of doing an expanded construction on the 3rd floor of our headquarters building at Saperton. And we'll be starting construction on an expanded women's locker room facility there. That'll start in April. Lots of legwork going on still as far as permits, et cetera, but that's going in the right direction. As well as we're doing some construction for increasing facilities out at our Richmond office. And we're going to really do our very, very best to provide updates to all of our staff, provide some photographs. Stephen and his team on the communications side are going to be communicating that out so that everybody sees the work that's going on, so that it's not just behind the scenes, that they actually know what's coming and what they can look forward to. Lots of training that goes on in service all year round, every year. And just to give you a little bit of an insight, we break the year down into quarters. So there's 4 cycles of training, and we plan training each year to address a couple of things. One is all the mandatory training that is mandated by the province for our officers to take in. But we also then look at what's trending. And we try to make sure that we bring in instructors, or we have in-house instruction that addresses those trends. So just a really quick overview. The 4 cycles of training this year will be on use of force. We have access now to a judgmental simulator out at Delta. That's a combined group effort amongst a number of municipal agencies. Allows our police officers to go in and address and be confronted by different judgmental simulations, scenarios that test their ability to perform under stress. We'll also be doing a cycle of training on Code 5 vehicle stops and how to appropriately deal with those issues. We, once again, every single year, we have firearms qualifications that'll be coming up a little bit later in September, October. And again, we go through another cycle of first aid training to make sure that our officers know how to not only take care of themselves, but also members of the public when that's required. And the last piece I'll just touch on, and we've sort of alluded to this before, is the future of work. The chief talked about COVID, and we talk about COVID a lot. Lots been going on in the last year, but we're in the process right now with our HR manager, Clark Glassford, in doing surveys of our managers throughout the organization to determine what the next steps will be. The pendulum swung from work at home almost completely for all of our support staff, and now we have to start to understand what works best for everybody. How does the organization operate itself most efficiently, and how do we balance this work from home, work in the office environment that we currently face ourselves in. So lots of challenges there, from trying to keep everybody happy, but being realistic about what the future of work needs to be. And as well, lots of challenges on the IT side of the house, because you realize there's lots of equipment and services that are required in being able to help and support employees offsite. We thought it was tough enough with employees in the building calling up and asking for IT support on a regular basis, but that exponentially has grown with the work from home side of things. So that's just a really quick high-level overview of what's going on the admin side of the house, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Barry. Does anybody have any questions? Murray, you're on mute there.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. That was a good report. I just wondered, in relation to the new simulator, I went in and toured that when it was first opened. Are you finding that we're using all the time that is allotted to us? And are the members happy with that training?
Yeah, so I'll throw the wet COVID blanket on that for a moment, because certainly when all of this happened, we were very, very restricted in how we could use that facility, and went through a lot of steps to ensure that we were providing the right policy and procedure to address the provincial health orders and what we were allowed to do in spacing. So that was really shut down for quite a long time. But we're now in a position where we can do some limited training there, smaller groups, and we figured out how to do that safely. But to answer your last comment, the members love it. There's nothing like putting yourself into a stressful scenario, to test your mettle, so to speak, and to make sure that you're able to respond appropriately when similar circumstances arise on the street. So everybody that's been in it so far love it. There's still a few more weeks of that training going on.
Thank you.
Ali.
A couple of questions. What's code 5?
Sorry, that would be when you have a high-risk vehicle stop, and the technical police jargon for that is code 5. Sorry for using nomenclature that's maybe not clear to everybody, but that's what that is. Yeah.
A high risk. Okay, I'm just curious. And what constitutes that? Like, well, now
Well, let's say you've got a report of a robbery that's just occurred with a weapon, and you happen to see that vehicle stop in front of you, that would constitute that type of a stop, making sure that not only the members are safe in how they do it, but they ensure the safety of the person that they're stopping and the public that might be around.
Gotcha. Should we? My second question is: should we have any concerns that we haven't had our union rep come to these meetings for a while?
I can maybe jump in.
Or am I?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. I don't think you should. I think they're invited every time. We have a very good relationship with them right now. We extend it. We could make sure they come and tell you how good the relationship is going, but and a lot of that credit goes to Oscar, who really handles the one-on-one and deals with them. But
I think maybe. Oh yeah, I mean, again, I'm not. I pose the question because it just we used to have the rep, and I'm sure the relationship is good, but I just want to make sure maybe Sarah can continue to have that dialogue with her or them on that. My last question actually relates to Murray's, just on the simulator. We shared that with Delta, VPD,
West Vancouver, Port Moody, Delta, and New Westminster.
Oh, not VPD?
No, VPD has their own training component that they take care of. So.
I see. And we're using our, just to clarify, we're using our pro rata share of that facility.
Yes, we're starting to use that pro rata share. As I mentioned earlier, it was shut down for everybody, but now everybody's launching back into a scheduled set of training.
Then it's all balanced. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I remember us going through the budget process for that.
Thank you, Ali.
Yeah, just on that. Thanks very much, Barry. Just on that, the simulator, what capacity is the judgment training? Is it de-escalation training? Is it, can you say a little bit more? I mean, I heard vaguely about it, but I don't know very much about it.
Well, the simulator gives us a full range of capability. It could be as simple as a return to work issue where somebody needs to just retrain on their firearm, but you don't want to get them out doing live fire right away, but they can fire on a simulated target on a screen, just very linear training, right up to full scale decision making that includes, in many cases, based on the scenario and how you can branch the scenarios, which is the beauty of this simulator, into de-escalation. So not everything ends up being a shooting. Most often, it will, if they say the right things, position themselves the right way, communicate with their partner in the simulator in the right fashion, and understand their environment as they should, these should all end up in a de-escalation and arrest without injury. So.
Perhaps, Sarah, I can also, we can put the offer out here. If the board members would like to come out, and remember, this is open to us 24 hours a day, so you could do it during the day or afternoon or weekend. Just can't interfere with the kids' birthday parties we're booking in there. So But we could certainly take you out to experience it, not see it, but go through it. And you'll understand, as Barry says, these aren't just like you push a button and it plays. There's someone controlling the actions. So if the member says the wrong, like makes an inappropriate comment to the person, they can change the reaction in the simulator to what's going on. So a person using good verbal communication skills, using de-escalation, will de-escalate it. The person starts becoming aggressive, they can make the other person become aggressive, right? So it's very well, because it's not like you can walk out saying, oh, I know what it's going to be, because you don't know, and you can't tell someone what the scenario will be. The other thing is that the company has a commitment to build new scenarios every year, and we'll build them to our environment. So if we want to do one, say on the SkyTrain or a bus or at a hub, they will build that scenario for us, and then the options that go in. It's part of our costs.
And there are two instructors at every simulation. One is running the apparatus himself, and the other is doing the assessment of how the officers act and react. And I mean, this is not like a video game. There isn't a score up in the right-hand corner that's, escalating as they're using this. When it's all done, they sit down and have a very in-depth debrief, and they have the ability to play back not just what the simulator was showing the member, but there's also video on the members themselves, and they can see their own reactions and make assessment on how they can do better the next time. So it's a very comprehensive simulator, and we're going to get great value out of it.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
And Murray, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, Sarah, that when I attended, it's the simulator is, what is it, about a 270-degree simulator?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the environment is very realistic,
Right.
both in relation to, there was one scenario that they ran while we were there for the open house, where there was a shooter in a theater, I think. And wow, it just felt like you were right in the middle of this. And so I was very impressed with how realistic the portrayal of events is. And so I could see how it could be very helpful in preparing people to face the real thing.
Okay, great. So if any director is interested in attending, just let the chief know. Ali, your speaker's muted.
No, I was just putting my hand up.
Oh, okay. So you're interested. Right. Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, thanks.
Right.
Is there anything else?
Yeah,
as part
no,
of that
I'd like
report?
to get Deputy Cumberworth of Ops to kind of give you an update on that. Barry just filled you in on the exciting admin stuff, the pushing the paper, the hirings, the keeping everyone healthy and safety and paid. Mike will talk about all the fun stuff that goes on.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I have nothing. Thanks, Chief. So just a couple of updates. The first is we've reorganized the structure of the department, and specifically within the operations division. We've created 2 new sections, and the purpose of this is just to align units, like units, to provide better support for our sergeants and staff sergeants. So there's the patrol section, which is in Inspector Dexter Huber is in charge of. That's our 4 watches and the targeted mobile enforcement team. There is the investigation section that is new, with Inspector Herman in charge of that. And then there is the support services section, which is new as well. And Superintendent Ferland is in charge of that during her secondment from the RCMP. So as I said, this was just to ensure there's better support for our NCOs and so on, as well as our members. A new unit just newly created. It's the crime suppression team. This was just approved this week. And this team started out as a six-month pilot project starting last fall. And its focus was on problematic bus routes and bus exchanges, primarily focused between Vancouver and North Vancouver. It was successful, and based on its success, it's expanded to other jurisdictions as well. And just to speak to its success, so in the last 3 months of 2020, the sergeant and 3 members were engaged in 135 files. They executed 90 warrants, arrest warrants. They produced 13 reports to Crown, so requesting charges for a variety of things. They were involved in, they initiated a drug investigation in Maple Ridge and conducted a joint investigation with Ridge Meadows RCMP, which culminated in a search warrant and the seizure of substantial evidence, drugs, money, and other items. This is also going to civil forfeiture for the seizure of the house and so on. So based on the success, the need to create a specialized unit that's intel-led and focused on the hotspots, emerging crimes, crime trends, and so on across the transit system, we've approved the creation of a unit. So it's 1 sergeant and 5 constables, which will be part of that unit. And it is just, we're going through the process of setting it up and posting for the positions. Second is the Waterfront Community Policing Center. So this opened earlier this week at the Waterfront Station. This began as a proposal in July 2019 by Constable Ponchion, who's in our community engagement team, and he's the neighborhood police officer for Waterfront. And substantial amount of work and huge credit to Constable Ponchion for making this work. So the CPC will work in partnership with us, with Vancouver Police Department, the bus company, and the rail company to provide that safety in and around the Waterfront Station. It will use volunteers who will work Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays from noon to 5. And they'll be highly visible with jackets, shirts, hats that we've supplied them. And they will provide proactive patrols, joint projects with our policing partners, community partners. And then once the COVID restrictions are eased or that we're able to interact more with the public by way of or through the Waterfront Station, we'll open that up, and then the volunteers will have access to the station as well, to our office at the Waterfront Station. As I said, huge credit to Constable Julian Ponchion. He successfully lobbied TransLink for funding. He developed roles and responsibilities for the volunteers, developed training, developed a COVID safety plan. He was involved in the hiring and vetting of, I think, about 30 volunteers, and pulled this all off. Of course, we hit the COVID pause there for a while, so it did stall some of the plans, but he's persevered. And as I said, we had a successful launch this week. We have photos and other information up on our intranet just to celebrate that success. Next is the Blue Eagle Community Youth Cadet Project. This is an initiative led by Constable Kirk Rattray. He's our Indigenous Liaison Officer, assigned to the community engagement team. And he's proposed this in partnership with the Vancouver Police Department and the Vancouver Aboriginal Community Policing Center. And the program will focus on Indigenous youth, male and female, between the ages of 12 and 14. And the goal of the project, well, there's numerous goals, but the primary one is to provide teaching, experience, and guidance to the youth participants so that they in turn can become leaders in their community. There's no cost for the youth to be involved in the program, but the program will encourage them to provide volunteer service within the community itself. The majority of the funding for the program is provided both through Transit Police and the Civil Forfeiture Office. This also was affected by the COVID pause, but again, Kirk has persevered. He's maintained momentum of the project, ensuring all the participants are involved and kept up to date. He's developed COVID safety plans, and we are now going through the process of seeking applicants and vetting and getting the program going. So great success there as well. And then just finally, we are just in the beginning stages of discussions with Via Rail Police to look at an MOU for our police service dogs to provide patrols at the train station at Main and Terminal. This will be once or twice per week when the trains come into the station. It's about a 4-hour assignment, and is to provide high visibility policing with our police service dog. And as I said, we're just beginning those discussions, but it looks very favorable that we'll begin that in March. And this is at no cost to us. There will be a funding aspect to the MOU as well. So, and that's it.
So, yeah, so thanks, Mike. As you can see, Mike has a very breadth of his division, which kind of has investigations and support and everything else that goes into it in terms of it. And you know, so I don't know if you have any questions for Mike based on what he said.
Does anybody have any questions? I do. For the waterfront community policing effort, you said that there's a web page internally. I'm wondering is there any way we could have access to that just to see, you know, in more, if anybody wanted to know more detail about how that is? Can we?
Steven?
Yeah, for sure. We can email that link out to the board. It went live earlier this week. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, no, it sounds super interesting, and the same thing. I want to hear more about the Blue Eagle project when it's a little further along. It sounds really great, actually. So congratulations and commendations to both of them. It couldn't have been easy to plow through that in the past year to get that up and running.
So the candidates have been identified. COVID was what put the wrench into everything. But from what I understand, they may have worked out a COVID safety plan to start bringing some of the kids together now. You know, unfortunately, the young boy who was murdered in Surrey there, that 14-year-old, was actually going to be part of this program. You might have seen in the newspaper reported that a police officer showed up at the house later and gave his mom a hat and some stuff. You know, and she was thankful for that. And that was Kirk Rattray. So while the Blue Eagle program focuses on urbanized Indigenous youth as the target group, it's not going to be limited. Like if you have a youth who sees a desire to be part of it and is an at-risk youth, we're going to still work with that individual. And that's exactly what happened there. Kirk was familiar with this boy, and the boy actually approached him excited about coming to this in advance. So it was a bit of a, you know, it's a tragedy when any youth dies in terms of it as well. So
yeah, thank you. That is sad.
And I know we've taken up more time than auditor, but if there was only one other aspect, and I thought maybe I would just ask Superintendent Ferland, was because I've had the board ask me just on what changes we've made in the area of our crime intel and stuff like that, how to become more the intelligence chain. So Anita, I know I might be putting you on the spot here, but just a short perhaps update on what changes have happened and how we are dealing with our crime analysts and making sure the members are getting the information that they need.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. So obviously my background before coming to Transit was heavily involved with Intel. So I was excited to be able to be part of really the development of the criminal intelligence program or unit to move from a strategic, which is kind of more the long-term planning, to really a tactical and operational, where really the intelligence is driving operations, particularly for specialized units such as the crime suppression team. So what I've done, and you know, this is limited amount of time here for the last few months, is just focused on the 3 members of the criminal intelligence unit and really streamlining the information that they are compiling for the sworn members on the road. So I guess the biggest change we've made, we have, they were compiling a tactical intelligence product that was approximately 25 pages going out bi-weekly. So I will just tell you, police are, we have a short span of attention, and 25 pages was a lot of information, but I'm not sure how usable it was for really the squad members that were on the road. So now we have realigned that to be a very concise, short, under 5-page document that goes out once weekly. And so this will have persons who may have no-go transit conditions on them with their pictures, persons who specific to transit might have outstanding warrants for investigations that we have or joint investigations with other JPDs, as well as any specific files that may have occurred within the last week or two that are very specific to whether violence, persons who tend to fight with police if they're approached. So certain aspects that will keep the police and the public safe. So that has just gone up, the second one this week, and it's being well received in a new format. So a little more usable and easier for the squad members to use. And our next initiative that will be hopefully rolling out by sometime in March, certainly by the next time we are together, will be a weekly intelligence meeting that will bring members from each of the squads, hopefully to have a designated constable who's the intelligence officer for each of the 4 squads, as well as representatives from the specialized units such as the crime suppression team and the tactical mobile enforcement team, as well as our general investigations unit, to all sit in a room, or as it so might be, it might be a Zoom room, to just discuss what's going on really out on the street, and hopefully to even engage our other TransLink partners such as the CLAs or even our bus drivers. So it won't be just criminal in nature, it'll be what are they seeing might be some emerging trends. And with that, we're hoping to be able to kind of stop that trend before it really becomes a problem for us. So that's the next initiatives, but it's pretty exciting to be able to have that opportunity to really link intelligence in with operations. So I'm very happy to be here and be able to provide some expertise to that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Murray?
Yes, thank you, Anita. Just a question with respect to, I noticed in the report that we received from Kurt Griffiths that one of the things that he had noted was the need for a better communication with the neighborhood police officers in their areas about intel that they could use as the basis for developing, I guess, better programs for their areas. Is that also part of what you're doing?
Yes, so the sergeant who's in charge actually of the criminal intelligence unit is actually heavily engaged with all of the JPDs or jurisdictional police departments. So there's a number of meetings that he attends. Obviously, some of them have been curtailed by COVID, but most are ramping back up. So for example, he's part of the Lower Mainland gang conflict weekly call. And there's other calls that have been done. We are working to move towards a greater integration with the actual analytical staff. And say for one, within this report that I was referencing, we have actually from the analyst in Burnaby, who is targeting certain specific persons near the transit system. We actually include those bulletins within that intelligence document. And I certainly hope to see that, as we evolve to be more robust. But certainly we also have to look at the fact that there are only 2 analysts and 1 member. So I'm trying to be realistic in expectations, but I certainly see that as somewhere that we will be moving forward towards.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? That's great. It's really important, and yeah, good to hear. Good to hear. Thank you.
That's the chief's report.
That's the chief's report. Okay. Thanks. So we move on to item 4, other business. And 4.1, community engagement presentation schedule update. Over to you, Chief.
So Stephen and myself have been just talking about this, and we're in the midst of developing a schedule. And this is going to be where we will be seeking to go out to either police boards or city councils or jointly, depending on what type of meeting schedule they have, in the communities with a tailored presentation about the activities of the Metro Vancouver Transit Police in their area, what we offer, what's happened, and a bit about who we are, and using the time to make these presentations at the beginning of a council meeting, like doing it in an open, or attending if they would like us to do that. So Stephen and I have talked about that. We don't have the schedule. I would like to say we'd like to target 1 a month. I would say for this year, we'd probably target, because we also have to identify whether it's a board and whether it's a city council, and meeting some schedules. We'd probably do 1 every 2nd month right now, because we'd like to have a bit of a presentation. Normally these are 5 to 10 minutes long, depending on what they want to give you for time. 5 will be short, some you'll get 10 or 15 minutes. The other thing we'd like to do as we develop it and start to look at these council schedules, which a lot are Monday evenings. Police boards vary, some are during the day, some are in the evening. In terms of it, is also invite whether a board member would like to come along. We anticipate that these will be by Zoom initially here, that we're going to do it. And we'd show you ahead of time, like, if we go to a place like Port Moody, we're able to tell them, about what we have experienced there, what our role is in the area, and how we can assist them when they come back to like large events such as, their Rocky Point days, their Golden Spike days, their Rib Fest, their Canada Day fireworks, like how we do redeploy to assist them on those given moments. So, we want to talk to them. So whether it's, because they don't necessarily generate a lot of calls for service, but then surprisingly, what we do assist them with is the beaches like White Pine. You might say, well, what are they doing up at White Pine Beach? Well, suntanning. What happens though is the parking lots up there fill up very quickly on a summer day. So everyone who wants to still go takes transit. Everyone who starts to take transit is also transporting the alcohol, which the Port Moody police are concerned about getting up there and all that. So we work with them to say, okay, so the road is closed, bus access is there. Now the people attending are shifting, but they're also packing up their alcohol and that. How can we assist you? So it's like to explain it so we can show the board and council just the extra added value that comes and what our role is and answer that. So we'll be targeting one every second month. I think that gives Stephen a bit of a break. I said every month. And we'll be looking at it and we'll advise the board if the board would also like to either, again, because I'm anticipating it'll be by Zoom, be part of the presentation. So don't have the schedule for you yet. So.
Great. Any questions? Okay, thanks, Chief. That sounds really interesting, and definitely keep us posted because I think people will want to attend those for sure. Okay. Item 4.2, strategic plan update. Stephen?
Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to try to share my screen, see if this works. Can everyone see the slide?
It's coming.
It's coming? Yes? No?
Yes.
No.
Okay, perfect. I have shared a version of this slide previously. I believe it was late last year at our December meeting. The dates have adjusted a bit just because we reallocated the December 17th meeting last year to other board business. But these are all kind of the key dates that the board should be aware of. There's also some working sessions that have been taking place in between each of these meetings. So we had a very successful session on Tuesday with Marnie, Murray, and Carla, as well as the chief. And we were able to take the SWOT analysis that we had done on January 22nd and begin to group and combine the themes, which will help inform those strategic pillars that are going to be kind of the basis of the new plan. Currently, we have, I think, 3 very concrete pillars. We're just working on the descriptions, and we're going to be bringing that forward to the board in a little over a week, and potentially a 4th. So those conversations will be ongoing on February 18th. And for all of those kind of 3 or 4 strategic pillar areas, what we're looking to develop is result statements, which is essentially what is the organization trying to achieve in each of those 3 or 4 areas that's going to lead us to be successful. And that's going to allow the management team, as we kind of move into the spring, to clearly develop objectives that support those result statements. So obviously the timeline's adjusted a little bit, but we're likely looking at bringing back the draft strategic objectives at the June 18th meeting. That would then allow us to get the feedback from the board at that stage, go out to stakeholders again over the summer, start doing the first draft of the plan, and then bring that back on the 24th. The one date here I'm uncertain of, like I do have a 3rd draft of the board on December 16th, but based on how extensive the changes are we're making after November 19th, that might be kind of pushed into early in the new year. But nonetheless, we are looking at finalizing the strategic plan and looking at a public release early in 2022 at the moment. We do have a strategic planning facilitator everyone's aware of, Louise Watson. So she's going to be with us on the 18th and the 11th. We've planned to bring her in for a couple sessions with the senior management team in April and May. And then as we move through the rest of the process throughout the year, we're going to be kind of working internally amongst the management team and the board to take this to completion. Any questions on any of that?
Anybody have any questions?
Stephen, just on it though, is it the period over the summer where we're going to engage with some of our members in that, like about some initiatives and that? Like I'm concerned that like people know we're developing a strategic plan, and it's been with the board. You know, they've had these input sessions. At what point do they get to have that input? Or because if we just produce it and drop it on in front of them, that's not going to be a good thing.
No, for sure. So actually for employees, we'd be going out a little bit earlier. We'd actually start to go out kind of in late March, early April, taking the pillars, asking employees once again, what are the kind of the key projects or the key initiatives? What are the key focus areas that they see falling underneath each of those pillars? And that would help inform the management team in developing those in the spring. There would be further engagement over the summer. I think a lot of that would be with the jurisdictional police partners, with the TransLink enterprise, as well as with the Chiefs Community Council. But the employee engagement would actually be coming back to that fairly quickly.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions at this time? I think we'll be, you know, always looking at that schedule and seeing if we're on track, if we need to move things up, do things earlier, slow things down. So it's always a bit of a work in progress, but we're keeping our eye on sort of the end game and making sure that we can get everything done and get all the information that we need at the times that we need it. So thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, Sarah.
So hearing no questions on that item, we'll move to 4.3, diversity initiatives. So maybe we've heard already about the diversity work that's being done on the staffing side, and with the work that Constable Rattray is doing. One of the things we have to do also is ensure that we work with police services to get a succession strategy going for board appointments over the next foreseeable period of time. And so I will say that that's certainly one of the things that I'm doing when I'm communicating with police services around board appointments, and is to make sure that we always ensure that we get the right mix of skill sets and representation. So that is something that's certainly on my radar, and I know it's on everybody else's. Is there anything else that people want to talk about or ask questions about at this time? Okay, well, thank you. Mike, thank you for telling us about the staffing questions. That's good. I mean, we're constantly working towards that, and it's definitely something that is always a work in progress. So, okay. If we want to move on to 4.4, report from the Finance Committee Chair.
Good morning. The Finance Committee has not met. Everything's been delayed due to COVID, budget changes, and cybersecurity. So our next scheduled meeting, I believe, is February 7th or something. Taryn, I can't remember now, but it's
March 2nd.
February 7th got delayed to March 1st. So in short, nothing to report here.
Okay, thank you. Item 4.5, report from the Governance Committee Chair.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. We had a governance meeting on January the 18th. We were lacking Stephen Thatcher because he left, so it was a small committee meeting consisting of Carla Murray and myself, along with the chief and others that were participating in it. Just in light of trying to be fairly brief and using everybody's time effectively, there's the minutes that you will see, probably a couple of items in the in-camera that we'll discuss. We did talk about risk analysis going to each committee. as you had all wanted, and that would be something that'll be coming out. The annual board effectiveness survey, Taryn will be sending that out with a recognition that also because of COVID, one of the pieces of it is around, you know, the board dealing with specific goals during 2020. That has kind of been altered, or we look to you folks maybe not to spend a lot of time on that because of COVID and the other focus of the board and some of the changes with some new members, including myself and Carla just in the fall. But I know that Taryn is sending that out shortly. The board succession plan that Sarah was just discussing was an item that we also talked about, and a desire from the committee is to have the board really more proactive in identifying specific needs around equity issues, diversity, skill sets, and so on. And so we'll be working with the board chair on that discussion. Orientation and onboarding, a refresh. Our chair has mentioned that also is something that she would like us to look at going forward. The governance model in which transit police operates, I know is a piece that everyone wants to look at in 2021. And the connection to stakeholders and public engagement, which the chief just described, was another item. And the thought being also for these particular board meetings, if there was a possibility to carve out maybe 10 minutes on a particular item where there could be a presentation, that might be the success down the road of maybe even the waterfront program, or some of those things that the chief would like maybe to showcase so that the board is fully aware of what's going on. So that's kind of a brief update. We're going to continue on with some items going forward here, and we can discuss that perhaps a bit later. If there's anybody got any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, item 5, Chief's Community Council Board Liaison. George, do you want to take a couple minutes and explain what that is to the rest of the board?
Well, the item itself is pretty straightforward. The chief has talked about this, and chief, just jump in. The community council that you've established seems to be very effective, and maybe just take a minute to talk about the breadth of participation, and then come back. I can just talk about maybe the thought about a board member being a liaison on a rotating basis.
Thanks, George. So the community council, Chiefs Community Council, is a board, a representative of the various aspects within the communities that we serve. So we have people from the hearing impaired, from First Nations, Indigenous. We have look for students, academic, even I think they're putting a professor, school board, just residential community individuals, senior societies. We look to get a diverse group of individuals onto there who are able to speak to issues of transit security and safety that they experience, or that a group they represent. So like, you know, we've got, say, Maxine Wilson is a former mayor of Coquitlam who is on here and is an advocate for seniors. And then we have an individual who represents the hearing impaired. And it's quite interesting because quite often when people look at how safety systems are designed within the transit system, and you think of a handicap location or signage in that, they don't necessarily consider people like with just hearing impairment, and you know how safety affects them. And then so we either work with the communities, we also represent to be able to put information. It's a two-way flow. I would say there's the Surrey Crime Prevention Councils on there, Diane Gillis, who represents a lot of the Burnaby area up in the Metro town. So it is a very diverse group of people. They come, we like to say it's their committee. We're there to answer to what they would like to hear from us. And it's a manner of information flow back and forth, which could include us working together with them, taking an initiative on our own, or even if it means taking the initiative to pass it on to another part of TransLink to address or to consider. So yeah, go ahead, George.
So in that regard, the chief was kind enough to let me sit in on it, and coming out of it, the conversation really was around the notion of perhaps having a board member just support the chief by attending. There's no participation other than just listening and actually kind of waving the flag from the board to be more involved in the community, which is part of what we've discussed going forward in the next year or so. The thought being is everybody's busy, and we recognize that we don't want to make it onerous. The thought also being that perhaps there could be a board member who would be a liaison, but it can rotate through everyone. And Chief, there are how many meetings a year? 5?
5.
5.
5 meetings.
So
yeah, they're in the evening. So, they start at 5 or 6, Taryn?
5 o'clock.
Start at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, and they're about an hour and a half.
And it's interesting to hear, and again, with the idea and perhaps the suggestion really is that each board member participate in one of those meetings. There's 9 of us, so basically you're talking about 1 meeting a year that you'd have to attend. So again, not to be onerous, but I think it would be very effective for all of us to hear actually from the community, because that's what we're here for. The board is there to represent the community and provide that civilian oversight. And by being engaged with the chief on this and just hearing a different viewpoint, I found it very interesting, and I would hope that others on the board would agree and put their name down to attend one of the meetings over the next 2 years.
George, I love it. I think it's a great, super fantastic initiative. Just to be, so put my hands up for the sessions.
So you're enthusiastic, Callie?
Yeah, I like to come off our perch and come down into,
that's great.
It gives to get ground zero of stuff like this is way more important and beneficial.
Murray too. Do you have is that a question, or are you putting your hand up, or maybe both?
Suggest maybe to operationalize that, if Taryn could maybe for the next year at least send out a schedule of the dates of the meetings and the times, and then request feedback from the boards from the board members as to which one they can attend, and see what the coverage looks like. And then maybe Sarah could reach out if there's gaps, reach out to us to see if we can fill the gaps.
Great.
So would you mind doing that, Taryn?
And
Yeah,
Marnie?
no problem. I'll do that.
Thanks.
Thanks, Taryn. Marnie? You're on the.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there a list of all the groups that are involved in it? I'd be interested to see the full list.
Yes, there is, in terms of it. And they do recruit for it. Like we just got another one. Diane Gillis does the community representation. It is one of the instructors at SFU Criminology. Do you remember, Karen?
Is it Helene Love?
No. Ryan.
Yeah, I can't remember his last name. I'm sorry.
Ryan. So we've tried to reach out to like student groups and student things. They change more often. So.
Great. Yeah, no, this is good. Okay, there's a whole bunch of hands. Carla and then George.
Just muted.
Oh, now you're on mute.
Mute. Okay,
There you
sorry.
go.
Yeah, just very supportive. What is the appointment process? How do members come on the board? And I think I know who you're talking about with Ryan SFU. I think he's very well known for his research in body worn cameras. Is that the same Ryan?
Yeah.
And his last name escapes me right now. So yeah. Anyways, but what's the appointment process? How are people brought into this board?
It is actually the committee that does it. It's not us. We recognize that this is a community-based kind of board that we support. It's not. So they have a person responsible for kind of membership and bringing back up. So the committee, which has the chair, and then there's Diane Gillis who does the membership role. They look to seek as to which agencies or groups or areas might not be represented, and they go out and seek to bring in membership to it. The only thing we play is they will look for nominations, and then they'll get it and they'll present them to us. Is the person okay? In other words, is there a reason we wouldn't want the person at the table, right? In terms of, we haven't rejected anybody in terms of that. So, and they've done quite a good job, I will admit, in terms of setting up things. Like we have someone, and I forget her name here, from the who's hearing impaired, So we've arranged, they have an interpreter, we have a sign language interpreter who's brought in for it. Like that's Taryn does a good job of that. And so, but the committee comes from them.
Great.
So
Okay.
if I could just finalize this by saying thank you. I will also say, having sat in on this, it's clear the chief has a great relationship with this group, and it's really nice to see that relationship being so strong. He does a great job of managing that discussion and opening it up for a variety of different viewpoints. And as a board member, again, the only thing I think that would be required is just to sit in and listen and support the chief and the executive, anyone attending. And if that can be done going forward, Taryn, I'll be happy to put my name on that list as well.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Thank you. Thank you, George. Item 6, BCAPB, the BC Association of Police Boards, as you know, is the association where each board has a representative and people can attend their annual meeting. It's typically a very good meeting, and lots of learning and good connections can be made, meeting people from different police boards across the province. This year it's going to be held virtually on March 6th, which is about a month from now. And there's some materials that has been circulated about the meeting and about if anybody wants to propose a resolution, we can do that. There will be a joint dialogue session with the BC Municipal Chiefs of Police, and that is likely to be a good event. I would commend it to everyone on the board. I've always learned a lot when I go to those meetings and find them really valuable. So the registration process is in the package. Take a look and see if that's something that you would like to do and have time in your busy schedules for. Everyone's trying to squeeze all this stuff in, but it's definitely worth it. If anybody wants to go, raise your hand, or we have a resolution here, a recommendation that we can appoint somebody as an authorized representative if people might be interested, if you're eager now to volunteer, or if you want to consider it and look at your schedules, we can put that off and do it later. What do you think? Murray.
I just wanted to say, Sarah, that it's the conference this year is there's no charge. Normally there's a registration fee. Because it's being virtually, there's no charge for anyone who's interested in attending to attend. And I'll be attending, having sat on the executive committee for the BCAPB in any case.
Perfect.
And so, but I think it sounds like there are actually 3 sessions. There's the session on, I think it's February, in late February with the chiefs. And there's a kind of a fireside chat room session on February 22nd, where it's just kind of a get together of anybody who's interested in chatting about almost anything. And they'll break us up into groups to talk about whatever it is we think might be healthy to talk about in relation to our work as police boards. And then the AGM is being held on the Saturday. I think it's March the 6th, is it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And that's the more formal session, but it will also include a keynote address by, I think, Minister Farnworth. So it would be interesting to hear from him, I'm sure, with all the things that are going on in the police world at that level. So I think it sounds like it's set up in a way that won't be boring and where you won't be online a long time, but the time that will be spent online will be very effective, in my opinion.
Okay. Dave.
I think just if I could encourage the board, one of the important, it's all important, by the way, but I think a lot of people have spoken well about it's the first day. It's kind of the town hall open session with the chiefs. It's usually takes on some of the more topical issues, and even if you can sit in for that, I mean, there'll be, usually a board representative and a chief on a topic of interest. So I'm sure you're going to have things from whether it be defunding or systemic racism or the things that boards want to talk about, or the Police Act review. So I would just encourage you, even like, as you say, Murray, it may be free, if you can find time, just selling one part of that program, which is, I think, has always been quite interesting. Usually everyone says it was too short, didn't have enough time.
Yeah, I agree.
We do need an authorized representative to attend the AGM. Maureen, were you intending to go to that AGM?
Well, if the board wants me to, I'm prepared to do that. You're not planning on attending, Sarah?
Oh, yeah, I'll, pending my workload. Yeah, I will.
Because it probably would, if there was just one representative, it probably would be best to be the chair of the board. But if you're not sure, I could stand as alternate in case.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
And
Okay.
They usually do have a meeting where just the representative meets you're part of the executive council, and that's sort of at the end. So you do want to, I mean, from my past experience, I did that with New West, and there's always that meeting after the AGM with the executive representative from each of the boards, which is interesting to go to as well.
So
Okay. So maybe between us, Murray, we'll figure out closer to the day which one of us has the bandwidth. But
Sure.
Definitely I'll be attending as much as I can. So maybe we could have that recommendation and appoint us, and we'll the recommendation that the South Coast BC Transportation Authority Police Board of Directors appoint Director Levine as an authorized representative and Director Dinwiddie as an alternate.
So moved.
Thank you. Great. Any other discussion of this? Murray.
there was one, I don't know whether this is worthy of a resolution, but I've raised it a few times in different forms, but I do think that the process that the province follows in relation to appointing people to boards is too short a term. It kind of was highlighted for me again in the context of this agenda, where I saw that Ali's been reappointed for a year. And I sort of think to myself, I mean, I don't know whether that was all Ali wanted to serve, but I get concerned that most boards, you have longer terms of service and overlapping terms of service for purposes of continuity, and that you're kind of more engaged and feel more committed to it the longer the term of service. So my sense would be, it would be good to recommend to the province that they consider a process where people are appointed to boards for longer terms of service, and particularly chairs, where the chair has such an important role in relation to the continuity of the agenda of the board. So I don't know whether that's something we could do this year, but I certainly see it as, from my perspective, in relation to just the business of the board, kind of a weakness right now. And especially like our board, I think all of us are coming due this year, which doesn't, in the context of normal boards, that would be almost unheard of.
Yeah, at different points in the year.
Yeah, so I look at that and I say that just doesn't feel like it's providing a strong base for governance, in my opinion. So I raise it only to say it's an area that continues to be a concern to me. Not that it's been, always evident, the problems, but I do see us always sort of being in a state of turnover and concern about whether people are going to be reappointed, whether the chair is going to be reappointed. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'll leave it at that.
I'll raise it with police services. I have no idea if there's sometimes it's, I think, a director's interest. Sometimes it's the way that the appointment process seems to work. And I think in our case, it just sort of landed so that this year is a bit of a busy year. But anyway, I'll take it up with police service. I'll just let them know. Yeah.
Sarah, I do have one. I mean, and I don't know if we've ever, sorry, I'm stuttering. That's not your internet connection. We've never done a competency matrix. Oh, is everybody frozen?
Nope, we're good. We do. We have a competency matrix.
Oh, you're good. Okay.
Yeah, we have a competency matrix. Yep. Yeah, the governance committee has that. And that's part of the board effectiveness work that the governance committee does every year, and looks at the competency matrix. And that's also part of the submission that the board makes to police services when we talk about what we're looking for in the next round of appointments, is talking about the areas that need to be filled. Absolutely.
Can I just ask a question? Ali, when you were reappointed this time, you weren't asked about how long you were prepared to serve. It was just a one-year appointment. Is that the way it worked?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I sort of say that's an interesting way to reappoint.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I'll be honest, like this is just a weird structure. Like the way I feel about it is like, you never really get a thank you card. You never really have any affiliation. You get this kind of like call and it's like, hey, you've been reappointed. So like, there's no discussion about, like, there's no connection really, I don't think, with police services. I mean, I think they fill in the gaps and it's not the way I would do it. Like, if I was appointing these positions, I would kind of be more engaged with knowing the people that I am appointing. So, I mean, it was David Pilling that
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, they connect with the chair and they ask questions and consult with the chair. I know they consulted with Mark, and whoever's sitting in this chair is consulted with, and the chair speaks to the director and asks the director if the director is interested in continuing to serve. So it's not, and you know, it sort of looks like a vacuum maybe from outside or a black box, but there is.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Some consultation, but there, I think too, there's a importance. It's important to maintain a certain amount of distance to avoid cronyism. So I think that's part of the effort is to try and be more merit-based and look at the skill sets that are required, expertise that are required, and for that they try to have a bit of an objective process. So I think that's part of it.
I see.
Yeah. We can have a little bit more discussion, but I am concerned about time because we're over our schedule a little bit, and we've got a really long agenda to talk about in the next meeting. And I did want to talk a little bit, George did want to report briefly on the webinar. And if George has, I think people have more questions, you can ask George about it. But if you could, do you mind if we, is that okay?
Yeah, if I can I just want to add one thing to what was said in the previous item is that the governance committee, and this was Murray and Carla and myself discussed kind of the appointment process, staggering and so on. And I think one of the feelings that we had was that we need to kind of take a little more control of, you know, that in a proactive way. And that goes to skill matrix, also around diversity and some other issues and so on. And that's an item that we'll discuss with the chair going forward. So our chair can carry that police services. We know that they're very busy over in Victoria with lots of different appointments, but it's, I think, important going forward that we get the right mix of individuals that want to be on this particular board, as our former chair Mark said at the beginning. With regards to item number 7, I'll send a note around, maybe just with some point forms. Taryn, if you could just circulate that. It was a seminar that was led by Heather Spicer, who's the executive director of the Calgary Police Commission. There were 26 participants. Really good, informative session. I think we can all learn from these things. I'd encourage other board members to attend any of the webinars that CAPG puts up during the course of the year. Even if you're been on this board for a long period of time, you always learn something. And there may be an opportunity to do something with the Calgary Police Services group around effectiveness, codes of conduct, protocols, and so on, that we can learn from as well.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, and I guess just on the last point of the process, I think one of the other reasons that it needs to be a bit distanced the way it is to promote the independence of the police boards, because the police boards do not, you know, it's a board that is acting in the public interest and is a civilian board, and it's not an arm of government. So that always has to be borne in mind as well. Anyway, we're a little bit behind schedule. Does anybody else have anything else they want to talk about now? Thank you. Our item 8 is our next meeting. Our next regular meeting of the Transit Police Board is April 23rd. So we will see you at the next open meeting at that time. And I will close this open portion. Thank you.